Namaste. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a technique of meditation taught there where they speak of the heart as a lotus. Think of the heart as a lotus and try to turn all those petals upward toward the brain so that all your feeling goes upward. All of spiritual progress is a matter, physically speaking, of aspiration, well, spiritually speaking, aspiration, but aspiration brings the energy upward to the brain. So let's try practicing that. I'm not going to practice with you so much, but thinking of each of the chakras. Concentrate in the lowest chakra, the Muladhara. Close your eyes, think there, feel yourself centered there, feel that it's a lotus. Chant Om at that chakra and feel that the energy is moving upward. This is what Kundalini forces it upward when it rises. Feel that you're helping it, cooperating with that process. Feel the energy turning upward like a lotus toward the brain. And all those rays of energy which go outward to keep the legs moving and the lower part of the body moving. Feel that all that energy is withdrawing and being directed upward. So chant Om 3 times like that. Om, Om. Looking up at the point between the eyebrows and feeling this move upward here. Then think of the next center, the Swadhisthana, the sacral center as we'd say it in English. And feel that that energy is being withdrawn from the sex organs and into the spine and directed upward. And feel that in the spine, if you feel sexual energy, you'll feel always a certain tingling of energy in the spine. Try to bring that energy upward and direct it up toward the brain. And then you will find bit by bit your energy is becoming withdrawn from that. Every time you bring energy up to the brain and release it from the hold that it has on that chakra, you'll find you're becoming more and more enlightened. You even get powers with that. The ability to walk on water, for example, the ability to levitate. These things are truths. When you bring the energy up to the Muladhara, the Manipur, in the sacral center, feel the energy like that again. A good practice is, well, I'm not going to teach that. This is not the place for that. But to chant Om there and feel that you're directing that energy upward and putting your consciousness here at the point between the eyebrows. And then concentrate in the heart and do the same thing. Direct that energy upward. And in the throat chakra, the, what is it called? The Vishuddha chakra. And then in the medulla, and feel that you're sending it here. Everything here. Don't concentrate up here. First you must open this, then your energy will go to the point, up to the Sahasrara. But then come down the spine and feel that you're, just go up and down the spine and feel that always the energy is going back to its source in the infinite. You will find after a few minutes of this practice that you will feel very light, very much more aware. All your ability to be aware depends on how much energy you can bring up the spine to the brain. Therefore, it's very important to avoid as much as possible those things which take the mind downward. Eating meat, for example, especially if you eat beef, veal, pork, these are highly evolved animals. And when they're killed, there's a lot of anger in them. To be a vegetarian is definitely helpful spiritually. It's not that you can't find God if you're not a vegetarian, but with all those things stacked against you, why not do what you can at least to have a few things in your favor? Being a vegetarian helps. You get the vibrations of those fearful and angry animals when they're being killed. It's much better to eat fish who are not very much conscious, lambs which are not very conscious, chickens are much less conscious. If you have to eat meat, eat that a little bit, maybe once a week or something. In fact, you have to be sensible. I know that one of my guru's first Kriya Yoga disciple in America was a Dr. Lewis. And he developed all sorts of pains in his body. And he went to different doctors. Nobody could help him. Finally, he went to our guru. And he said, well, sir, what is this? And my guru said, well, it's because the cells of your body are used to eating meat. So better give them a little bit. He said, once a week, just eat a little bit of lamb. That's enough. And he did that, and it all went away. So sometimes you mustn't be a fanatic. Be gradual. Realize that your body and yourself have habits. If you have to give in to the habit, at least resist mentally. Give in minimally, and bit by bit rise. But try not to drink. Try not to eat. And if you drink, don't drink alcohol. Obviously you have to drink. Fruit juices are fine. But alcohol fuzzies the mind. I remember I used to drink a little bit when I was 21. But then I began to think in terms of becoming a yogi. Becoming not a yogi yet, I didn't know what the word meant, but seeking God. And I remember it was very hot in June, I think it was, in New York City. And I went into a bar and I had a couple of beers. Well, beer isn't all that bad. But I noticed that although it didn't at all make me drunk, I wasn't as in clear command of my mind as I was beforehand. So I thought, if I'm seeking clarity, why do anything that is going to diminish that clarity? So I just gave it up. I never had any interest again. But these things are important. Don't do those things which cloud the mind. Drugs are anathema for that reason. Drinking is one of the greatest delusions. People think they're happy, but they're not happy with that. It's just sort of a drunken delirium, that's all it is. And sex is another thing. It's the second most difficult thing to overcome in human nature after self-preservation. And so the answer is not to try to give it up and then become totally frustrated, but to give it up bit by bit, but not to think that the more you have of that pleasure, the happier you will be. Because what happens is that the more you lose your sperm, and even women who don't lose sperm, they become old before their time. And men become actually stupid. They lose their mental clarity. They become senile long before they're old. And they no longer have the ability to do anything well. Sex is it was given to you as a friend. And the more you can conquer it, the more you will find that you can become a lion of self-control wherever you go. But if you give in to it, you'll get weaker and weaker and weaker. Physically, mentally, you'll be subjected to disease. All these things, we must give up those things. And if you can learn to become completely a brahmachari, it will be a very great help to you. If you cannot have any desire, then you can reach the point where you realize that you have tremendous power inside you. But as long as you have this desire and give into it, the more you will... this is one of the terrible things of modern science. Look at Freud. He said the whole trouble with modern life is that there's too much sexual repression. Well, repression's no good, but transmutation is essential. He didn't know anything about that. He didn't think we have any aspirations or anything to aspire to. Modern science in this way, thank God it's starting to come out of those woods, but it's been a curse in many ways. But what we must do is learn to avoid strictly anything that dulls the mind. And this includes overeating, it includes too much sleep, it includes anything that you can find in your own armory that is working against your own mental clarity. Fasting 1 day a week is a good thing. Fasting 3 days a month on fruit juices is a good thing. Anything you can do to keep your energy flowing upward will be absolutely necessary. Now, if you look at people, you can even see from the way they walk, you can see from the way they hold themselves, you can see from many things. This quality is something that is expressed in the eyes, and the eyes especially are the windows of the soul. Many times when you look at people's eyes deeply, you can recognize old friends there. Their bodies may have changed, but there's still that old fellow there. And The voice is another thing that can help to uplift you. And the voice is a true guide to character. How is it? This voice is just a physical instrument, but you get two trumpets, they always sound alike. Get two flutes, they sound alike. You can't say that any two people's voices are exactly alike. I remember as I was in the Patna airport many years ago, and I was talking to a friend, and an American came over, an older man, and he said, "You sound like one of the Walters." That was my family name. And it turned out that he was a friend of the family back from when I was in high school, and I was in my mid-30s. But how did he recognize me? Just from my voice. Your voice is distinctive. Mine perhaps is more so, I don't know. Because many times I've come to a city and tried to phone an old friend. As soon as I say his name, "Oh, Swami!" Or even sometimes I just say, "Oh, Swami!" So there's something, but you are you, and it'll show in your voice. And if you learn to put yourself in your voice, out of the fullness of the heart speak. Speak from your own being. Don't just use it in a sort of a physical instrument to talk. Talk from your being. Well, all of these can help you to rise spiritually. And so, with all your different chakras, all your being, try to do that which will help to raise your energy in the spine and direct it upward. And first of all, that means avoiding those things which pull you down. Those things, don't think that it's only in the mind, because that's exactly where it is. That's the only place it is. That's where the whole battle takes place. That's where Kurukshetra takes place, in the mind and in the spine. Now we've got to learn to draw that energy through yoga practice. And this is why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "O Arjuna, be thou a yogi." Because yoga simply takes advantage of simple facts of human nature that we all know. And it turns them inward and helps you to make something useful out of them. You're no different from anybody else, but if you understand, you can become that which you want to be. And you're no different from the greatest saint who ever lived. One of the things that brought me onto the spiritual path was the horrifying realization that the most dark human being is myself. In that form, he's just specializing on behalf of the whole human race in being himself. And I thought if I made the same mistakes, I could fall that low. I could be anybody. But why do I want to do that? I was frightened to death of getting into error once again. And I think I was driven as much by fear as by love, but love was paramount. And I always had this desire to help other people. And when I came across the continent of America after reading Autobiography of a Yogi, I thought two things. One, I will find God. I will find that bliss that he's described. And the other was I will find something that I can use to help everybody. And I've had such a longing to help people to understand. I'm not just here talking to you. I have this deep desire to help you individually, to understand who you are. That your true nature is not this drunken blur, or this money madness, or this sexual stupor. Your real nature is bliss, Satchidananda. You are He, and your destiny is to find Him. And there again, you are wiser than you know. The reason you seek everything in this world is because you know that's what you want, and you don't know where to find it. And so you look for it in the right ways. I'm trying to tell you what the right way is. Get into the spine. Turn your heart to God. Bhakti yoga is beautiful, but it still takes the mind outward if you're just dancing and so on. When you're calm in your bhakti and the energy goes inward and you turn all that energy up toward the brain, then that becomes true bhakti. You don't really, the yama niyamas of Patanjali are very important. Asana is important. Asana is not the physical postures. It's learning to sit still with a straight spine. The yama niyamas give you the benefits of them, and we'll talk about that another time. Very important. But as you go deeper and deeper, it always takes you deeper into the self, into the interiorized mind, into the realization that that inward mind is beginning to hear the sound of Om, and then merging in Om, and finding behind Om the Christ consciousness, the Kutastha Chaitanya, and merging into that. But you all have a right to that. You have as much right as anybody who ever lived. Never say you are anything but a child of God. Dwell in that thought. Don't go around like that. There was that comic cartoon that I saw in New Yorker many years ago. Two monks, one of them turns to the other one and says, "But I am holier than thou." No, you don't say it with ego. You don't say, "I'm holy," but I am not I. I am He. He is being holy through me. He is remembering God through me. He's rejoicing through me. The more you can get rid of this sense of I, the more you can have that thought of Him doing it, and through your willing instrumentality, the more you find bliss always with you. And the wonderful thing then is that you look at everybody and you see their potential for bliss. You see that that's what they're looking for, and then how can you not love everybody? You have to love them, because they're all seeking the same thing. And the wonderful thing, too, is that when everybody finds that bliss, it's also individualized. It's individual Satchidananda. You will have bliss in your particular way. You will come to God in that particular way. Once you are one with Him, you will always remain yourself also. You don't lose that part, because it's always there in omniscience, in memory.